It's time for the weekly countdown of the top 10 light novels in Japan for the week of April 2nd to the 8th of 2018. Hello everybody, and welcome to the weekly countdown of the top 10 best-selling light novels in Japan. This covering the week of April 2nd to the 8th of 2018. 6 new titles on the list this week, but overall seems to be kind of a slow sales week. On average, we see a lot of numbers, even down at the very number 10, over 8,000, 9,000 copies sold. We've had recently quite a few number ones that have sold in excess of 40, 60,000 copies in their first couple of days of business. But this week, it's not really like that, actually. The sales are fairly low, so I don't know if this is just a typically slow week in Japan. If for some reason they just put out some titles that aren't huge sellers, I'm not too sure. But, well, let's just get into the list. At number 10, with 4,205 copies sold, it is volume number 18 of Date Alive. Now, this one has been on the list for a couple of weeks, so it is one of the 4 that remains from last week. The story about a boy who must make girls fall in love with him, otherwise the girls will destroy the world. Yeah, a really popular series. Unfortunately, no official English translations for the light novel or even the manga spin-offs. Did have an anime which covered volumes 1 to 7 of the light novel series that has been licensed in English. At this point, though, who knows if we're going to ever get this title. Although, as we spoke in our last video, this is a Fujimi Fantasia Bungou book. That's sort of the imprint that we haven't really had anything from. But Yen broke that ceiling by licensing the Isekai Mom series that I'm sure we will be talking more about down the road. But in any case, so I know that a few people are sort of fingers crossed, hoping that this one might see the light of day in English officially, but well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. At number 9, with 4,342 copies sold, kind of an interesting thing, this was on the list for a couple of weeks, then dropped off the list, and now it's back, and that is Bungou Stray Dogs, Dead Apple. Now, of course, this one has had a 24-episode anime. You can stream it on Crunchyroll. This is a theatrical film, which, as my understanding goes, is kind of a compilation film telling pretty much the same story that the first season of the anime did. This novel is now the novelization of that film. The actual Bungou Stray Dogs series is initially a manga series, which is licensed for English release by Yen Press. They released volume 6 on April 10th. So that's where we are in terms of English release of that series. Kicked out of his orphanage and on the verge of starving to death, Nakajima Atsushi meets some strange men. One of them, Dazai Osamu, is a suicidal man attempting to drown himself in broad daylight. The other, bespectacled Kunikida Dopo, nervously stands by, flipping through a notepad. Both are members of the armed detective agency said to solve incidents that even the military and the police won't touch. Atsushi ends up accompanying them on a mission to eliminate a man-eating tiger that's been terrorizing the population. And funny enough, actually, for Bungou Stray Dogs Dead Apple, Crunchyroll has been doing these sort of anime nights at the movies kind of thing, and this is their latest title. So if you're interested in it, and you're in North America, you'll actually have a shot to see it in theaters, which is kind of cool. At number 8, with 4,387 copies sold, a series called Eiga Novelize Honey. I have no idea what this is about because I could not find anything about it in any fan sites. Google Translate was a dog's breakfast when I tried to figure it out. It does obviously appear to be a romance series. Love, romance, and marriage were words that popped up in the Google Translate in a rather nonsensical way. And even if we just go generally with the way that a lot of light novels are marketed, even the artwork, that sort of softer, very, very shoujo looking type artwork, definitely this is a romance title that's pretty much, I would say, aimed at a female audience. But that's pretty much all I know about it. I don't know if it's like an ongoing series that's kind of like a... I get the impression this may be like a serialization series. Like it may just be that there's a series, but each story is sort of new characters, new situations. Kind of like the Harlequin romance series, but in light novel format. That's my guess. I don't really know. If you have any ideas, feel free to put them in the comments down below. At number 7, with 4,424 copies sold, Volume of Kenja no Mago, or the Magi's Grandson. Again, this is one that was on the list last week, about a boy who is reincarnated into a fantasy world and becomes a uber powerful magic user, and in order to spread his wings and become independent, he goes out into the world, but unfortunately is completely ignorant of just exactly how ridiculously OP he is in comparison to everybody else. I've heard from a few of you that it's actually a pretty good series. I don't know if we'll get this one in English. I mean, there's only 8 volumes, and it seems to be pretty popular. Pretty much ever since I've started doing this list, every time there's a new volume, it hits the top 10 and manages to stay for at least a couple weeks. So who knows? Maybe down the road we'll be able to pick this one up in English. At number 6, with 5,452 copies sold, Volume 24 of Mahouka Koukou no Rettousei, the Irregular at Magic High School. I don't think we really need to say much more about this one. It's been on the list for weeks now. Of course, licensed by Yen On. They released Volume 7 in English at the end of March. There is a 26-episode anime which covered volumes 1 to 7, but excluded 5 for some reason. You can still stream that on Crunchyroll. There was a theatrical film last year that was out in Japan. I guess I should have looked to see if you can pick that up. I'm pretty sure it was licensed. In fact, I think it might have even shown in some North American films for like a limited run. And this one, of course, about a society where magic has been pretty much codified and been reduced to a science, and sort of a battle high school with all sorts of like harem romance and all that kind of stuff thrown in. Again, a series that I liked the anime and watched it, had a hard time getting into the light novels, probably because of the fact that I had watched the anime. Who knows, maybe as the anime fades from my memory, I will go back to it at some point. At number 5, with 5,744 copies sold, Volume number 3 of Kaifuku Jutsushi Yarinaoshi, Sokushi Mahou to Skill Copy no Chouetsu Heal, or the redo of a healing magician, transcendental healing of instant death magic and skill copying. Gotta love light novel titles. This one has no English license for the light novel. Using healing magic on the world itself, I'll start over. Healing magicians cannot fight alone. Kaere, who was bound by this common knowledge, was exploited again and again by others. But one day, he noticed what lay beyond healing magic, and was convinced that a healing magician was the strongest class. However, by the time he realized that potential, he was deprived of everything. Thus, he used healing magic on the world itself to go back 4 years, deciding to redo everything. This is a heroic tale of one healing magician who became the strongest by using knowledge from his past life and healing magic. Now, I've seen Volume 2 of this was on the list before, and I'm still not exactly sure exactly how this works. So I'm guessing then that when it says healing his past life, they mean that he's lived already through the 4 years and now he's gone back, right? At least that's the impression I get. Like, it's not really like a reincarnation, I don't think. Isekai, it's not, I don't even think it's an isekai. I think it's just like, you know, a fantasy series, but the shtick is that the guy has knowledge of what's going to happen over the next 4 years and is working to avoid the pitfalls that he fell in during that time. That's my impression of it. If you're familiar with the series in any way, let me know in the comments down below. I mean, it's a relatively new series. This is only the 3rd volume, so there's not a lot of information out there about it, but I'd be happy to hear about anything that any of you know. At number 4, with 5,948 copies sold, Volume 5 of Isekai Izakaya Nobu, also known as Different World Tavern Nobu. There is no English license for the light novels. Now, there is a manga spin-off which has been licensed by Udon Entertainment, which I'm not really familiar with them a whole lot. As far as I know, I think they are just revealing like they announced it that they had the license, I believe, last year, but they are just sort of coming out with what they're going to be doing with it. Probably because there is now an anime that has just begun streaming this season on Crunchyroll, so they're probably timing their release to tie into that. But again, no release in English for the light novels. Imagine there is a bar which serves a variety of food and drinks and makes you feel like you have been transferred to another world. The bar, which is called Nobu, is located in a back alley of the old capital. This is a small tale that revolves around this otherworldly bar. This actually sounds a lot like, what was the last anime that was out a couple seasons ago? Restaurant to Another World, which I don't even know if that was based on anything else, but this really just sounds like the exact same setup. So I don't know if it's going to have more of an arc, like Restaurant to Another World, if you watch the anime, it was very much like a compartmentalized series. Like, I mean, you know, some events sort of carried over, but for the most part, it was the stories of the customers who frequented this restaurant that once a week went from being a Japanese restaurant to having access to this other world. So it was actually a really cute series. I enjoyed it a lot. I thought the premise was kind of cool. I don't know if it was based on something or even if it was like an original take based on this series. There's, like I said, there's 5 volumes out of it, so it's been going on for at least a little bit, so maybe. But I'm not too sure, but nonetheless, you can check it out in anime format. Right now on Crunchyroll, I think the first 2 episodes at this point are released. And of course, they'll be having more over the season. But again, no word at this point whether we might see the actual light novels in English. At number 3, with 8,345 copies sold, Volume 12 of Shinmai Mao no Testament, also known as the Testament of Sister New Devil. No English license for the light novels. The manga is being released by 7 Seas. They released Volume 8 in March. There is also a spin-off manga called Testament of Sister New Devil Storm. It is a little racier even than the main series. They released Volume 3 in April. And there is a 22-episode anime which you can stream on Crunchyroll, and it is licensed by Funimation. Hey, you said you wanted a little sister, right? First-year high school student Tojo Basara was suddenly asked this question by his father, and he fell into a state of panic. On top of that, the eccentric father told him that he will be getting remarried. He then departed overseas after bringing Basara 2 beautiful stepsisters. But Mio and Maria's true forms are actually a newbie demon lord and a succubus. Basara was almost forced into a master and servant contract with Mio, but a reversed contract was formed by mistake, and Basara is now the master. Moreover, Basara is being hit by ecchi situations one after another due to the contract, but Mio's life is being pursued by other demon tribes and hero tribes. The most powerful contractor's desire action drama begins. This series, like, I've heard from a couple of you that it gets to be kind of pornish as we go along. Certainly the anime had some pretty pretty racy moments. Particularly the OVA was like, wow, okay. I didn't actually watch the second season. I watched the first season and then the OVA, and I was like, wow, this is like almost bordering on hentai here. And that was censored. I can just imagine the uncensoring. In any case, this is a series that, again, we do have the manga for. And I've looked at Storm because I was like, how's that more explicit? And yeah, it's more explicit. So you can read the manga, you can watch the anime, but no light novels. And I really don't know, given what some of you have said, I don't know if we'll get the light novels. I don't know if it might be just a little too racy at this point for an English publisher to take it on. The publishers seem to be still a little bit careful and still picking up titles that are aimed more at that sort of mid-teen bracket and up. So it'll be interesting to see, though, going along, to see if maybe that changes over time. At number 2, with 8,966 copies sold, Volume 16 of ReZero Kara Hajimeru Isekai Seikatsu, or ReZero Starting Life in Another World. Of course, this one has been on the list for a couple of weeks now. Series that I'm absolutely loved with. We do have in English, obviously, being released by Yen On. I have read up to, what is it now? Volume number 6 is what was most recently released. So I have read, I'm up to date. I've also read they're releasing the ReZero EX spin-offs. As far as I know, there's only 2 of those. They have released both. I've only read the first one. I'm actually waiting to read volume 2 of that because somebody, I think, said that it had some spoilers for volume 7 in it, so I don't want to do that. I want to go into volume 7 unspoiled. So anyway, this one also, of course, has the anime series, which you can stream on Crunchyroll, and Yen Press is releasing the manga. So a series that we have pretty much entirely available in English. The only thing we don't have are the short story volumes that they've been putting out in Japan. I don't know if we'll get those at some point. I mean, obviously the series has been doing very well and is pretty popular. And of course is about a boy who is an isekai, a boy who finds himself in another world and is utterly powerless. He's just another kid until he dies and then all of a sudden awakens at an earlier point and realizes that he has been given an ability, but that is returned by death. So essentially he dies and goes back to a save spot. But unfortunately he has no power over where that save spot is. So it's a very cool series. A lot of sort of like psychological trauma, horror in it. Probably a lot more than I thought there would be when I first started it. But really well written series and one that I always recommend because, yeah, it's fantastic. Finally, at number 1, and it's a brand new number 1 with 27,270 copies sold, One Piece Novel A, Volume 1. So, of course, the One Piece series that pretty much tramples all over the place and has been ongoing forever, it seems. There's 813 episodes of the anime. I don't even know how many volumes of manga there are at this point. The manga is licensed in English by Viz. Funimation has licensed the anime in North America. This one, actually, it's an official novel written in the 3 issues of the One Piece magazine. It chronicles the life of Porcas D. Ace after he starts his voyage, but before he encounters Whitebeard. So this collected volume has been advertised as having additional material above the original 3-part release that occurred in the One Piece magazine. So it's a compilation. I guess this was told in 3 parts, obviously, in the magazine. This has now been compiled into a single volume, and they've added some new material, and the manga artist has done a brand new cover for it. So that is what came out in Japan, and not surprisingly kind of takes the number 1 spot. I mean, the last One Piece novel did pretty much the exact same thing. So there you go. That is your list for this week. This week, I'd like to give a special shout out to Ki Duong Ngayen, Ola OJ the Ball, and Jean-Luc Chartier. and all the rest of my patrons on Patreon whose continued support allows this channel to keep going, as well as some new projects that I know I mention every single week that I've got new projects coming, but for real, they are happening, and I will have hopefully more information for you in the next week or two about all the things that are going to be coming out. There is some pretty exciting stuff going on. So that I would like to, for all of that, I would like to give a special thanks again to everybody over on Patreon for their support. So those are your top 10 best-selling light novels in Japan for the week of April 2nd to the 8th of 2018. Like I said, you know, take a look at the sales numbers. It's kind of surprising that only the number one spot cracked over 10,000. Everything else was quite a bit lower. In fact, low enough that a title that had slipped out of the top 10 came back into it. So, like I said, kind of a slower week this week. I don't know if that just is indicative of the titles or if there's just sort of if it's maybe the time of year in Japan. Don't know, but it will be interesting to see what happens on next week's list. So if you're brand new to the channel and you love light novels, you should consider subscribing. I do this countdown every single week, as well as doing weekly reviews of 2 to 3 light novels. Thank you so much for joining me in this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Till then, bye-bye for now.